Spring 1915 found the Ottoman Empire stretched thin at every border and tested from within. In the Caucasus, Russian advances fed on the violence aimed at Armenians, while in Mesopotamia and Persia, the Entente targeted strategic cities while exploiting regional rivalries. The Gallipoli front and the looming threat to Istanbul added a fourth theatre to the empire's burdens. Ottoman officers, Arab deputies, Armenian communities, and Kurdish auxiliaries faced loyalty dilemmas, fear, and survival under pressure. Yet, resolute and defiant, the Ottomans stand firm, vowing to defend their borders and to confront the great powers arrayed against them. The Entente will pay dearly for every inch of Ottoman soil in the spring and summer of 1915. This video is sponsored by you. Unfortunately, the YouTube environment is not great right now, with the algorithm being friendlier to drama and react channels and YouTube being permissive of AI slop. We don't do drama and we don't do AI, but thanks to our members and patrons, our channel continues to make 3 public videos per week, with the team intact and going strong. In recognition of their generosity and contributions, members and patrons receive 2 additional exclusive videos each week, and access many other perks. Join them to watch more than 250 exclusive videos covering every era of history by pressing the join button under the video or the links in the description and pinned comment. Enver Pasha's Sarıkamış campaign left the Ottoman Third Army devastated, creating a large salient on the southern flank of the Caucasus front. The Ottomans had to defend a front exceeding 600 kilometers with only 50,000 troops and 130 artillery pieces. Meanwhile, their massacres against the Armenians disrupted supply lines. From June to July 1915, Ottoman forces bombarded Mush before storming the city in street-by-street combat, massacring all who failed to escape. Seizing the opportunity, on May 6th, General Nikolai Yudenic's Russian Caucasus army advanced through the Tortum Valley toward Erzurum, taking the city of Van en route. They were initially checked by the Ottoman 29th and 30th Divisions, but by July they captured numerous locations as they approached the Kop-Kermanj border. Concerned about the threat to their right flank, the Ottoman Third Army reinforced Van province with the independent right-wing group, led by Major General Halil Pasha. On the 16th, the Ottoman 9th Corps and the right-wing group, totaling about 40,000 men, counterattacked the 4th Caucasus Corps' right flank around Mush. Seeing the enemy's strength, Yudenic ordered a withdrawal towards Malazgirt, and the Ottomans pursued, capturing much of the Russian baggage train. On the 20th at Malazgirt, General Peter Oganovsky committed his reserves to a counterattack, but was repelled. Ottoman forces pressed east, securing territory north to Kop and south to Van. This caused over 200,000 Armenian and Christian refugees to flee east, further complicating Russian logistics. Spurred by victory, Kerim Pasha moved through the Elishkurt Valley and the Iri Mountains in pursuit of Oganovsky's remnants, thinning Ottoman lines. With his left flank threatened, Yudenic built a strategic reserve at Karakurt and ordered the 1st Caucasus Cossack Corps under General Nikolai Baratov to support a counterattack by the 4th Caucasus Corps. On the 27th at Karakilisa, Baratov struck the Ottoman left flank as they were pinned by Oganovsky, routing them and forcing a retreat. The Ottomans abandoned much of their supplies. A hurried defense near the Mergemir Pass allowed some to escape as the Russians pressed west. The Turkish 29th Division was dispatched from Pasinkaya Valley to halt the Russians near Mergemir, but the Russians inflicted heavy losses, up to 10,000 Ottoman casualties and 6,000 taken prisoner. By early August, the Russians established a front from Mergemir Pass to Bernebulag. They reoccupied Manzikert, withdrew from Van, and set up defensive positions at Baghiri, Sarai and Oshak. After the victory at Shaiba in April 1915, the Indian Expeditionary Force, commanded by General Sir John Nixon, aimed to seize Amara, believing it would open the route to Baghdad. On May 31st, General Charles Townsend, leading the 6th Pune Division, advanced from Kurna towards Amara, supported by an armada of steamboats, armed with cannons and machine guns. On the eastern flank, the 22nd Punjabis of the 17th Brigade captured several fortified islands along the western bank. On June 2nd, Abu Aran was bombarded as Townsend's mini-flotilla and ground forces pursued the retreating Ottomans, engaging Ottoman barges near Ezra's tomb. By the 3rd, about 3,000 Ottoman defenders attempted to withdraw from Amara as a British steamer with a 12-pounder forced the surrender of 11 demoralized Ottoman officers and 250 men. Roughly 2,000 troops fled upriver. The next day, Townsend raised the Union Jack over Amara's customs house, capturing a further 800 Ottoman troops. With Amara secured, Nixon ordered the next phase of the campaign up the Euphrates to Nasiriyah, Basra's largest southern Mesopotamian supply depot. The Ottoman defense along the Euphrates consisted of roughly 4,200 troops, supported by Bedouin tribesmen, and it was hoped Nasiriyah's capture would win over Euphrates Bedouin to the Entente cause. On the 27th, Lieutenant General George Gorringe led the 30th Brigade towards Nasiriyah, and Sekes Shiyuk fell without a fight. However, entrenched Ottoman resistance halted further progress. Meanwhile, a revolt in Najaf saw Bani Hassan tribesmen burn government buildings, a hospital, and over 200 Persian dwellings, and Kabbalah declared independence from the Ottoman Empire. Harsh heat and mosquitoes ravaged Gorringe's force, necessitating reinforcements, and by mid-July, Bedouin tribesmen shifted their allegiance and began raiding Ottoman supply lines. On July 24th, Gorringe bombarded Ottoman positions, and the infantry attacked, with fighting continuing into the night. Ottoman casualties neared 2,000. About 950 were taken prisoner, and the remnants retreated to Kut. The Nasiriyah objective was captured, but the British Indian force suffered 533 casualties in the operation. While the Ottomans were busy defending themselves against the Russians in the Caucasus and the British in Mesopotamia, events were transpiring over in Persia. Tangistani tribes of Delvar, led by Rais Ali Davari, were eager to overthrow British influence in the region after being provoked by the German spy Wilhelm Wasmus and his agent Helmut Litzmann. Beginning on July 12th, Delvari attacked the small British garrison at Bushehr, killing Major Oliphant, but was ultimately repelled. By the 16th, Britain had resolved to occupy Bushehr and perform a punitive expedition against Delvar. On August 8th, a force consisting of 500 British Indian cavalry, led by Major Trevor from Basra, occupied Bushehr. The next day, Trevor dispatched 4 companies of the 96th Berar Infantry, led by Major Wintle, to land in Delvar, supported by Royal Marines. On the 10th, they began surveying the coast, finding entrenched Tangistani forces on the 13th. They naval bombarded them and fired from their boats using Maxim guns and rifles, before landing at 11 AM. At 3:30 on the 15th, Wintle's men stormed Old Delvar, and by the afternoon began attacking New Delvar and its fort. Wintle had demolition teams destroy the fort and burn the villages. By this point, the Tangistanis had amassed a roughly 600-strong force, so Wintle re-embarked and returned to Bushehr. The British Indian forces suffered 15 dead and 38 wounded. During spring, conflict broke out in Arabia. At the outbreak of World War I, Britain allied with Abdulaziz ibn Saud, the Emir of Nejd and Hassa, to counter the pro-Ottoman Emir of Jabal Shammar, Saud bin Abdulaziz al-Rashid. A minor battle on January 24th saw Ibn Saud abandoned by Ajman tribesmen under Daidan bin Hithlain and defeated, suffering 600 casualties and the death of his advisor, Captain Shakespeare. In June 1915, Ibn Saud camped near Jabal Kanzan with 4,000 troops to negotiate with the Ajman tribesmen, roughly 3,000 men strong. Internal dissent arose when the Emir of Nejd's brother, Sa'd bin Abdul Rahman, opposed peace and pressed for a night assault. Sa'd was killed, and Ibn Saud's forces were encircled, beginning a 6-month siege. Intervention by Ibn Saud's cousin, Saud al-Kabir, and half-brother, Muhammad Abdulaziz, eventually broke the stalemate. The Saud forces inflicted 350 casualties, mostly upon Ajman women and children, while suffering 2,400 casualties and losing credibility amongst their British allies. In southern Arabia, by early June 1915, Aden's defences became strained, as British units were redeployed to Red Sea operations. Seizing the moment, General Ali Said Pasha led a substantial mixed force of around 2,000 Turks, and a few thousand Yemeni and Arab troops from Taiz, Yafi and Al-Hawashib, plus 20 artillery pieces towards Aden's hinterlands. They crossed into Lahej, prompting Sultan Ali bin Ahmed al-Abdali of Lahej to request British assistance. General Shaw organised the Aden Mobile Brigade, consisting of 250 rifles and 2 mortars under Lieutenant Colonel Pearson, to advance towards Lahej as the Ottomans reoccupied Sheikh Said. On the 13th, the Ottomans attacked Perim, but the on-island British Indian garrison held out. Shaw then dispatched Aden camel troops for reconnaissance, which found a strong Ottoman presence near Nubia Dakim before joining the Aden Mobile Brigade's vanguard entering Lahej. By July 4th, the British joined several hundred of the Sultan's forces to repel the Ottoman attack upon Lahej's capital initially. They faced 4 Ottoman battalions, 20 artillery pieces, and thousands of Arab tribesmen. Meanwhile, the rest of the Aden Mobile Brigade struggled with desert logistics and failed to reach Lahej in a timely manner. By the 5th, Arab camp followers deserted the British, taking camels and leaving the force exposed. 3 British officers were wounded, and Sultan Ali bin Ahmed al-Abdali died from wounds received in battle, prompting the British to withdraw to Kaur. The Ottomans occupied Lahej and Sheikh Othman, damaging British prestige and shifting the strategic initiative. On July 20th, a composite force under Lieutenant Colonel Elsme launched a surprise attack on Sheikh Othman, routing the Ottomans and inflicting about 60 casualties, with hundreds captured. Over a 2-month period, British naval support, most notably HMS Philomel at Wat, helped drive Ottoman forces from Lahej and reasserted some control over the Aden hinterland. Meanwhile, closer to the Ottoman capital, after the Gallipoli landing, the Entente fielded over 50,000 men, but failed their objectives of seizing Acibaba and Aribanu. Had these tasks succeeded, the Allies could have silenced shore batteries, forced the Straits, and possibly seized Istanbul with naval support. Instead, entrenched Ottoman positions around Anzac Cove and Cape Helles prevented meaningful gains. On April 27th, the Turkish 19th Division, reinforced by 6 battalions from the 5th Division, counterattacked the 6 Entente brigades at Anzac Cove. With naval gunfire support, the Allies withstood the assault through the night. The following day, French troops landed from Kumkala on the Asiatic shore, on the line's right near Morto Bay, reinforcing Allied positions. In the Helles sector, on the 28th, the British 29th Division under Major General Hunter Weston and the Corps Expeditionnaire d'Orient under General Damad began an offensive against Krithia. The French were to hold the right, enabling a British pivot towards Krithia before attacking Acibaba from the south and west. Hunter Weston's command distance from the front hindered coordination. A naval bombardment opened at 0800 as the advance pressed through pockets of Ottoman resistance, but the terrain obstructed progress. On the left, the 87th Brigade sallied at Gully Ravine. The assault soon ground to a halt and was abandoned by 1800. Of the approximately 14,000 troops engaged, the British suffered 2,000 casualties, while the French losses were 1,000. By the 30th, the Royal Naval Division under Major General Archibald Paris landed. The Ottomans, led by Lieutenant Colonel Mustafa Kemal, believed the Allies were near defeat and began pushing forward through Wire Gully towards the 400 Plateau and Lone Pine. 8 Ottoman battalions departed Istanbul the following day, and that afternoon, Ottoman counterattacks struck Helles and Anzac Cove. The Ottomans briefly breached the French sector, but Entente machine gun fire repulsed the assaults. That night, aided by naval and artillery bombardment, they made limited progress and left the force exposed on the left flank. They were repulsed, suffering about 1,000 casualties. After the collapse of the First Battle of Krithia, the British 29th Division consolidated and endured Ottoman counterattacks on May 1st and 4th. Counterattacks at Anzac Cove on May 2nd were repelled, enabling Birdwood to judge the front secure enough to redeploy 2 brigades to Helles for Krithia's anticipated assault as both sides reinforced the area. The Entente plan called for a broad front advance across the peninsula. The French would strike the right against Karaves Spur. The British centre would pivot left to seize Fir Tree Spur and Gully Spur, then capture Krithia. Together they would take Acibaba. The May 6th assault began with the 88th Brigade over Fir Tree Spur toward Fir Tree Wood, while the 6th Howl Battalion bogged down over Canley Derre. On May 8th, the 88th Brigade was relieved by the New Zealanders, who faced machine gun fire from Gully Ravine. At 17:30, Hamilton ordered a full front advance to capture Krithia and Acibaba. The Australian 2nd Brigade advanced from Tommy's Trench, but incurred roughly 50% casualties. The New Zealanders attempted the Daisy Patch crossing, but were halted short of Ottoman trenches. The French captured Boucher Redoubt, but were pushed back from Karaves Derre. Over 1/3 of the Entente forces became casualties before Hamilton ordered them to dig in. Prolonged trench warfare then settled along the lines, with sporadic raids and sniper fire common. The Ottomans planned another major counterattack against Anzac Cove under Major General Asad Pasha. By the 17th, roughly 42,000 Ottoman troops faced the Anzac Corps, consisting of 2 divisions and about 17,300 men with 43 artillery pieces. On the 18th, Entente reconnaissance detected Ottoman preparations. The 19th saw the Ottoman assault on the Anzac lines commence, with a tense stand-down in No. 2 section as Ottoman forces from the 2nd, 16th and 5th Divisions pressed against Australian trenches. The Australians and New Zealanders responded with decisive fire from multiple sectors, blunting the first wave. Turkish advances were repeatedly repulsed near Johnston's Jolly, German Officers' Trench and Wire Gully. South of Lone Pine, a joint Australian trench extension along the Turkish 16th Division created a choke point. Turkish forces briefly breached Wire Gully and even reached Australian trenches before being driven back by artillery and infantry fire. Turkish efforts against Quinn's Post, Courtenay's Post, and adjacent positions similarly failed, and by daylight, Turkish momentum had collapsed along the line. Anzac casualties for the day were 468 wounded and 160 dead, while Ottoman losses were heavy, with about 3,000 killed out of approximately 13,000 total Ottoman casualties. A truce brokered on the 24th by Colonel Aubrey Herbert and Mustafa Kemal allowed both sides to bury the dead in no man's land, a gesture reminiscent of the Western Front's Christmas truce of 1914. In the Helles sector, the British and French forces had moved forward by night, gradually approaching the Ottoman front line. After 2 failed attempts, Hunter Weston's renewed attack on Krithia Achibaba demanded limited objectives: capture forward Ottoman trenches, advance 500 yards to establish a new trench line, and use 8 armoured cars to push along the Krithia Road in support of the Royal Naval Division. On June 4th, bombardments and a feint preceded a noon assault as the Ottomans withdrew into their trenches. The left flank Indian Brigade faltered, though the 1st 6th Gurkha Rifles achieved progress along the Aegean shore. The 14th King George's Own Ferozepur Sikhs Regiment suffered heavy losses in Gully Ravine, with 80% of their officers lost. At the same time, the 2nd Battalion of the Hampshire Regiment advanced along Fir Tree Spur, but lost contact with the Sikhs. Ottoman strongpoints, largely intact after the bombardment, halted much of the British advance. The 42nd Division captured the 1st Ottoman trench line and advanced about 1,000 yards, and its 127th Manchester Brigade reportedly took 217 prisoners. The Royal Naval Division captured trenches, but their second wave was decimated by enfilade fire and failed to reform. Subsequent attempts to achieve the second objective failed, resulting in a retreat. By 1600, Hunter Weston ordered consolidation as Ottoman counterattacks intensified against the 127th Brigade. The brigade faced a 3-sided attack within an hour and withdrew. The third attempt produced substantial casualties: 4,500 British, 2,000 French, and 9,000 Ottoman, for only 250 to 500 yards gained over a 1-mile front. The road to Krithia cost the Entente about 20,000 casualties per mile. In preparation for a renewed push, separate flank attacks were planned. On the 21st, the French, backed by overwhelming artillery, seized 2 redoubts on Karavis Spur, taking Harcourt Redoubt and the Quadrilateral by June 30th. Captain Kemal Bey, wounded on the line, died the next day. The French suffered about 2,500 casualties, while Ottoman losses reached about 6,000. On the 28th, a left flank assault targeted Gully Spur, Gully Ravine, and Fir Tree Spur. The British 29th Division and its 29th Indian Brigade attacked Gully Spur and Gully Ravine, while the 156th Scottish Rifles Brigade struck Fir Tree Spur. After 2 days of bombardment, fighting began at 10:45 on the 28th. The 2nd 10th Gurkha Rifles and Royal Fusiliers advanced to Fusilier Bluff as the Border Regiment seized the border barricade in the ravine. On the right, Fir Tree Spur attacks faltered, with the 156th Brigade suffering 800 casualties. The Ottomans, leveraging manpower but constrained by limited artillery and machine guns, launched persistent counterattacks culminating on July 5th, but these were repulsed. Repeated bayonet assaults failed to seize the hills above Gully Ravine and Karavis Dere, resulting in Ottoman losses of up to 16,000, roughly 4 times the Entente losses. A final centre assault near Krithia Road and Achibaba Nulla, led by the 52nd Division's remnants, the 155th and 157th Brigades, began with bombardment and proceeded in 2 waves. While early progress suggested the 1st Ottoman trench had fallen, overextension, loss of contact, and intense fire halted the advance. A disorderly retreat followed the next day, with a limited resumption under pressure. The Entente sustained about 2,500 casualties, while the Ottomans sustained approximately 9,000 casualties and 600 prisoners. After 2 months of brutal fighting, Gallipoli settled into another stalemate. The spring offensives of 1915 left the Ottoman Empire battered but still unbroken. Across the Caucasus, Persia, Mesopotamia, Gallipoli, and the Arabian Peninsula, the Ottomans faced relentless pressure from Russia, Britain, France, and internal enemies, testing loyalties and eroding supplies. By summer, trenches and stalemate dominated the front lines, with both sides paying steep prices, echoing the horrors found on the Western Front in Europe. However, the war was far from over for the ailing Ottoman Empire. In the next episode, we will discuss the end of the Gallipoli campaign and its impact on the other fronts of the war, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our patrons and YouTube members can watch more than 200 exclusive videos. Join their ranks via the link in the description or by pressing the join button under the video to watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our private Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.